poor girl attended the wrong charity event, where Millionaire CEO revealed he had been watching her. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma stood in front of the large glass doors of the charity gala, her hands shaking slightly as she adjusted the strap of her dress. She hadn't planned to attend this event. In fact, she had no business being here at all. But her friend Jenny had convinced her to go, telling her that she could use the opportunity to network and maybe find a way out of her struggling life. The problem was, Emma didn't belong in this world. She didn't know anyone here, and the people around her were dressed in gowns and tuxedos that looked nothing like her modest second-hand dress. She felt like an imposter. This is a huge mistake, she muttered to herself, barely noticing the people walking past her, absorbed in their high society conversations. She wasn't even sure why she had come. She had no rich relatives or friends, no connections to anyone here. But Jenny had insisted, and for some reason, Emma couldn't refuse. She took a deep breath, steeled herself, and walked through the doors into the glimmering world of the elite. The atmosphere was as grand as she imagined, with gold chandeliers lighting up the room, the sound of clinking glasses mixing with the low hum of polite conversation. Her eyes scanned the room, feeling like a fish out of water, trying to find a familiar face or at least someone to talk to. Her mind was racing, but all she could think about was how she didn't fit in. She wandered aimlessly, trying to appear casual as she sipped on the champagne that was handed to her by a passing waiter. And then, she saw him. A tall man sitting at a table near the back of the room, his dark hair neatly combed, his sharp features illuminated by the soft glow of the chandelier. He seemed out of place too, or at least, that's what Emma thought. She had no idea who he was, but something about the way he sat there, looking around the room, caught her attention. She made her way over, her nerves making her heart race faster than usual. "Hi, you must be Kevin?" she asked, smiling awkwardly as she sat down at the table without waiting for a response. The man blinked at her in confusion for a moment before shaking his head slightly. No, I'm not Kevin," he said, his voice low but kind. "But I'm Liam. Nice to meet you, Emma." "Oh, sorry." She laughed nervously, cheeks turning red. "I guess I got the wrong table. I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to be." "It's no problem," Liam said with a warm smile. "Blind dates are always awkward, right?" Emma froze for a moment, realizing that she had made a huge mistake. She hadn't even noticed that he wasn't Kevin. It was embarrassing, but his easygoing demeanor put her at ease. They began talking, and soon Emma found herself laughing at the way he talked about his job, his travels, and his life. She didn't feel judged. He wasn't like the others at the gala, polite but distant. Liam seemed genuine, and for the first time that evening, Emma felt like she could relax. They spoke about everything and nothing at all, and it felt strangely comfortable. Despite the misstep, Emma found herself enjoying his company. As the night went on, she couldn't help but feel that there was something more to this meeting than just a chance encounter. But she couldn't quite put her finger on it yet. Emma walked out of the charity event, still feeling the warmth from Liam's unexpected kindness. She had never been the type to belong to places like that. As she made her way to the exit, the grand chandelier lights seemed to dim in her mind, replaced by the echo of her own nervous heartbeat. She had made a mistake, but the night hadn't turned out as bad as she had anticipated. In fact, Liam had made her feel like she wasn't just some stranger in a crowded room. They had exchanged a few more words after their awkward introduction, and with each passing minute, Emma felt a strange sense of comfort. Her nerves, which had once been tight and suffocating, had eased, leaving her with a sense of warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Emma left the event feeling a little lighter, the weight of her daily struggles temporarily forgotten. But as she walked down the street, her thoughts drifted back to Liam, and she couldn't help but wonder if he was different from everyone else in her life. Back in her tiny apartment, the cold air seemed to seep into her bones, but she couldn't shake the thought of that smile he gave her. She didn't know why, but she found herself thinking about him more than she should have. "Get a grip," she muttered, shaking her head as she tossed her coat onto the couch and grabbed a glass of water. She had enough to worry about. Her rent was due next week, and her job at the cafe barely paid the bills. A future in the art world, something she had dreamed about since she was a little girl, seemed like a distant fantasy. As she sipped her water, she couldn't help but wonder if she was fooling herself, dreaming about a life that was never meant to be hers. The clock ticked on, and her mind began to wander again, this time back to the gala. There was something about Liam that had made her feel seen. For the first time in ages, someone had made her feel like more than just a girl trying to make it in a world that didn't care. The next morning, Emma woke up to a gray sky and a cold apartment. The city outside her window felt distant, like another world entirely. She sighed as she grabbed her jacket and made her way out to catch the bus for her shift. When she arrived at the cafe, her boss, Karen, was already there, frowning as she looked at the schedule. "Emma," Karen called out as soon as she saw her. "You're late again. You can't keep doing this." Emma nodded, trying not to let the words sting too much. She knew Karen was right. She couldn't afford to lose this job, but it felt like every day was a struggle to keep up. As she started her shift, her mind wandered back to the gala. It had been a few hours since she left the event, but she hadn't stopped thinking about Liam. She didn't know why, but something told her that meeting him wasn't just some random accident. He was different, and she couldn't get him out of her head. The day dragged on, and by the time she was finished, it was already late. She walked back to her apartment with a tired sigh, her feet aching. Just as she reached her door, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hey Emma, it's Liam. I hope you don't mind me texting you, but I wanted to say that I really enjoyed our conversation last night. If you're free sometime, maybe we can grab a coffee." Emma's heart skipped a beat as she read the message. She didn't know what to think, but the excitement that surged through her was undeniable. She hadn't expected this. She stared at her phone for a long moment, unsure of how to respond. She didn't want to come off as too eager, but at the same time, she didn't want to lose this opportunity either. Finally, she typed back, "I'd like that. When are you free?" It wasn't long before Liam replied, suggesting they meet up the following afternoon at a cafe downtown. Emma felt a flutter of nerves, but also a strange sense of anticipation. This could be the start of something, or it could be another one of those fleeting moments she'd look back on and wonder what could have been. Either way, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to find out something important about herself and about Liam. The next afternoon, Emma arrived at the cafe early, the anticipation hanging in the air as she stepped inside. The small, cozy place had a quiet charm, with the sound of soft jazz playing in the background and the smell of fresh coffee filling the air. She looked around nervously, trying to find Liam. It wasn't like her to feel this way, nervous and unsure, but there was something about him that had her second-guessing everything. Was she overthinking this? Was it just a friendly meetup, or was he really interested in her? She spotted him sitting by the window, his familiar dark hair and sharp features making him stand out even in a room full of people. He looked up when she entered, and a smile spread across his face as their eyes met. It was a relief to see him smile, and it immediately put her at ease. She walked over to his table, her heart racing slightly. "Hey," she said, her voice a little more nervous than she intended. "I hope I'm not late." "Not at all," Liam replied, standing up to pull out the chair for her. "I'm just glad you could make it." She smiled and sat down, still feeling a little out of place but trying not to show it. The cafe was quiet, and the moment felt surreal. The last time they spoke, it was in the middle of an awkward misunderstanding, but now, here they were, sitting across from each other like two old friends. "So what's new?" Liam asked, taking a sip of his coffee. Emma hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure how much to share. "Not much," she said with a small laugh. "Just the usual. Work's been rough. I'm still trying to figure out how to make my art dream happen." Liam nodded thoughtfully. "I remember you mentioning that at the gala. That sounds like a huge goal, but I know you can do it." His encouragement made her feel warm inside. She didn't get much support in her life, so hearing those words from him made her believe a little more in herself. "Thanks," she said, her voice a bit quieter now. "I just feel like there's so much standing in my way. It's hard not to get discouraged." "I get that," Liam said, his tone sincere. "But sometimes the hardest part is just taking that first step. Once you do, things start to fall into place." Emma smiled, a little unsure of how to respond. She wanted to believe him, but life always seemed to get in the way. As they continued talking, Emma started to notice how comfortable she felt around him. It wasn't just his words that made her feel this way. There was something about him, something genuine, that made her believe in the possibility of change. After a while, the conversation shifted, and Emma found herself asking him about his life. He told her about his work in tech, how he had started his company from the ground up and had spent years building it. She couldn't help but be impressed by his ambition, but also a little intimidated. He seemed so confident, so sure of his place in the world. I never realized how much work goes into running a company, Emma said, feeling a little small in comparison. It's not all glamorous, Liam said with a chuckle. It's long hours and a lot of stress, but it's worth it when you see the impact you're making. Emma nodded, thinking about her own dreams and wondering if she could ever make them happen. As the conversation continued, she couldn't help but feel like there was more to Liam than just the successful CEO persona he presented. There was kindness in his eyes, a depth that made her believe he wasn't just in it for the money or the recognition. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like maybe she wasn't so far off from her dreams. Maybe it was time to start believing in herself, the way Liam seemed to believe in her. She wasn't sure where things would go from here, but for now, this moment felt good. It felt like a step forward, and that was all she needed. The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. She found herself thinking about Liam more than she expected, replaying their conversations in her head. There was something about him that was different from anyone she had ever met. It wasn't just his success or his charm. It was the way he made her feel like she wasn't just another face in the crowd. He actually listened, and that made all the difference. The reality of her life, however, was a little less comforting. Rent was still due, and her job at the cafe wasn't going to get her any closer to her dreams. But in the back of her mind, there was a small, growing seed of hope. Liam had said the hardest part was taking the first step, and for the first time, Emma felt like she might actually be ready to take that step. One evening, after finishing her shift, Emma walked home in the quiet streets, her thoughts racing. She hadn't seen Liam since their coffee date, but she couldn't stop wondering if he was really as genuine as he seemed. Or was it just a fluke? Maybe he had been kind because of his position, or maybe he just liked the idea of helping someone like her. When she opened the door to her apartment, she found a small envelope waiting for her. It was from the building management, and her stomach dropped. Rent was due in a few days, and she didn't have enough money to cover it. She could feel the familiar anxiety creeping back in, tightening her chest. She had hoped for a miracle, but miracles didn't happen in her world. She sat on her couch, staring at the envelope, trying to figure out what to do. But then, just as she was about to give in to the overwhelming feeling of defeat, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Hey Emma, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to check in and see if you're free this weekend. There's an art exhibit I'd love to take you to, if you're interested." Emma stared at the message, unsure of what to feel. The last time they met, she had felt something real between them. But now, seeing this message, she couldn't help but wonder if it was just another way for Liam to be kind. She didn't want to take advantage of his generosity, but at the same time, it was hard to deny the pull she felt toward him. After a moment of hesitation, she typed back, "That sounds nice. I'd love to go." She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. Over the next few days, Emma tried to focus on her work and getting things in order, but all she could think about was Liam and the upcoming art exhibit. It was a small thing, but it felt like the first real chance she had in a long time to do something for herself. When the day of the exhibit arrived, Emma put on her best dress, a simple but elegant one she had picked up from a thrift store, and made her way to the gallery. The place was beautiful, with soft lighting casting an almost magical glow over the artwork. She felt a little out of place at first, but when she saw Liam waiting for her by the entrance, her nerves settled. "You look great," he said with a smile as she approached. Emma couldn't help but blush at the compliment. "Thank you," she said, feeling a little self-conscious. As they walked through the gallery together, Liam pointed out different pieces of art and shared his thoughts. Emma found herself relaxing in his company, enjoying the evening more than she had expected. The art was beautiful, but it was the connection between her and Liam that made the night unforgettable. They spent the evening talking about everything and nothing at all, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As the night came to a close, Liam offered to drive her home. On the way back, they talked about their dreams, their fears, and everything in between. When they arrived at her apartment, Liam turned to her with a serious expression. "Emma," he said softly, "I've been thinking about something. You deserve more than just a chance to make your art dreams come true. You deserve a chance to build a life where you don't have to struggle every day." Emma looked at him, unsure of what he meant. "What are you saying?" "I want to help," Liam said, his voice sincere. "Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I believe in you. I think you're capable of amazing things." Emma's heart raced as she tried to process his words. She had never been offered help like this before, and the weight of it felt almost too much to bear. She didn't want to feel indebted to him, but at the same time, a part of her wanted to say yes, wanted to take the opportunity. But she didn't know if she was ready to accept help from someone like him, someone who seemed to have everything figured out while she was still struggling. She looked at Liam, his gaze steady and full of understanding. "I don't know if I can accept that," she said quietly. "I've always had to do everything on my own." Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "You don't have to do it all alone," he said. "Sometimes it's okay to let others help." Emma felt the tears welling up in her eyes, but she held them back. She didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face it alone. The following week, Emma found herself walking into a brand new reality. Liam's offer to help had left her with more questions than answers, but she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. She had spent most of her life pushing through on her own, never asking for help, always finding a way to make ends meet. But here she was, standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. She couldn't shake the feeling that accepting Liam's help meant losing a part of herself. But then again, was that such a bad thing? Maybe it was time to accept that she couldn't do it all alone. She had always been proud of her independence, but as she stood in the small cafe, preparing for another day of work, she realized that pride wasn't going to get her any closer to her dreams. She needed a change. She needed to take that first step. After her shift, she met Liam at a nearby park. The evening air was crisp, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun began to set. Emma felt a nervous flutter in her chest, unsure of what to expect. "You look great," Liam greeted her with his usual smile. It was the same smile that had made her feel seen the first time they met. "Thanks," she replied, trying to calm her nerves. "So what's the plan?" "I've been thinking," Liam began, his expression turning serious. "You've got so much potential, Emma. I know you've had to fight for everything, but I believe in you. I want to help you make this art thing happen." His words echoed in Emma's mind, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like someone truly believed in her. But even with his encouragement, she still hesitated. "I don't know," Emma said, her voice wavering slightly. "I've always done things on my own. I'm not sure I can just accept help." Liam stepped closer, his eyes filled with understanding. "I get it," he said softly. "But sometimes, accepting help doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're smart enough to know when to ask for support. You've already got the talent, Emma. All you need is the chance." His words struck a chord deep within her. She had always been afraid that if she accepted help, she would be seen as weak or dependent. But what if that wasn't true? What if she was simply giving herself the opportunity to grow? The thought was both terrifying and liberating. I guess I could use a little help," she admitted, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. But as soon as she said them, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Maybe this was the change she had been looking for. Over the next few weeks, Emma's life slowly began to shift. With Liam's support, she was able to set up her own art exhibit. It wasn't easy. There were still obstacles to overcome, still moments of doubt. But for the first time, Emma felt like she was moving towards something real. She found herself spending more time with Liam, and their bond deepened. It wasn't just about his help with her art. It was about the way he made her feel seen, heard, and understood. She was starting to realize that maybe she had been wrong about so many things. She had spent her whole life pushing people away, afraid of getting hurt. But now she was beginning to see that there were people out there who genuinely cared. The opening night of her art exhibit arrived, and Emma was a bundle of nerves. She had worked tirelessly to get everything just right, and now it was finally time to see if it would pay off. As she stood in the gallery, waiting for the guests to arrive, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This was her dream, unfolding right before her eyes. Liam stood beside her, offering quiet encouragement, and for the first time, Emma felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The evening was a success, far beyond what Emma had expected. People admired her work, and for the first time in a long while, she felt proud of herself. She had done it. And it wasn't just because of Liam's help. It was because she had taken that first step, allowed herself to believe in her own abilities, and let someone in. That night, as the guests left the gallery, Liam pulled her aside. "I'm so proud of you, Emma," he said, his voice full of warmth. "You did it." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice soft. But Liam shook his head. "No, you did this. I just gave you the chance." As they stood there, surrounded by the beauty of her work, Emma realized that this was just the beginning. She had taken a leap of faith, and for the first time, she felt like she was truly on her way to something bigger. She wasn't alone anymore. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to face whatever came next. As the days passed, Emma's life began to settle into a new routine, one she never imagined she'd have. The art exhibit had been a success, and the opportunities seemed to be flowing in from all directions. The gallery had invited her to showcase more pieces, and local art buyers were reaching out, offering to purchase her work. Emma had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was happening, she found herself feeling both excited and overwhelmed. She spent late nights in her small apartment, sketching new ideas, brainstorming, and planning her next moves. With Liam's support, things were starting to take shape, but Emma couldn't shake the nagging feeling of doubt that lingered in the back of her mind. She had always been the type to rely on herself, to carry the weight of her dreams alone, and now that someone else was involved, she couldn't help but wonder if she was losing a part of herself. One evening, as she was packing up after another long day of work, her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. "Hey Emma, I've got a surprise for you. Meet me at the cafe tomorrow at noon. I think you'll love it." Emma felt a mixture of curiosity and excitement. She had no idea what Liam had planned, but she couldn't deny the thrill that rushed through her. The next day, she arrived at the cafe, and Liam was already sitting at a corner table, his usual warm smile on his face. "Hey," he greeted her, standing up to pull out the chair for her. "Thanks for coming. I've been thinking about how we can take things to the next level, and I have an idea that I think could really help you." Emma raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I've been talking to a few people," Liam explained, "and I think it's time to get your work out of just local galleries. I want to help you get your pieces into some bigger exhibitions, ones that could really launch your career." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't even considered showing her work outside of her local scene. "You think I'm ready for that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam nodded. "I believe in you, Emma. I know you have the talent. You just need the right exposure, and I can help with that." Emma looked at him, her mind racing. This was everything she had ever dreamed of, an opportunity to take her art to the next level. But something inside her hesitated. "I don't know if I can do it," she confessed. "What if I fail?" Liam reached across the table, placing his hand gently over hers. "You won't fail. You've already made it this far. All you need is someone to believe in you. And I do. I always will." Emma looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The doubt that had been holding her back began to fade, replaced by a new sense of determination. She didn't have to do this alone anymore. With Liam's help, she could make her dreams come true. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of excitement and nervous energy. With Liam by her side, Emma secured spots in prestigious art exhibitions, and her work began to gain attention beyond what she had ever imagined. The more she immersed herself in her art, the more she realized that she was capable of so much more than she had ever believed. She wasn't just making art anymore. She was building a future. But even with all the success, there was something deeper growing between her and Liam. As the days turned into weeks, Emma found herself thinking about him in ways she hadn't expected. He had been a constant support, not just in her art, but in her life. He made her feel seen, important, and loved in a way she hadn't felt before. It wasn't just the career opportunities he had given her. It was the way he cared for her, the way he made her believe in herself again. And as much as she tried to ignore it, Emma knew that she was starting to fall for him. One night, after a long day of work, Emma sat in her apartment, her mind buzzing with excitement and anxiety. She had just finished working on a new piece for an upcoming show, but as she looked at the canvas in front of her, she realized that something was missing. It wasn't just the art, it was her. She missed Liam. She missed the way he made her feel. And as she sat there, Staring at the empty space in front of her, Emma knew what she had to do. The next morning, she called Liam and asked him to meet her for lunch. When they sat down at the cafe, Emma took a deep breath. "Liam," she began, her voice steady but full of emotion, "I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. You've helped me so much, and I don't think I'd be here without you. But there's something else I need to say. I've realized that I care about you. More than I've ever cared about anyone before." Liam's expression softened as he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Emma," he said softly, "I care about you too. More than you know." In that moment, everything shifted. It wasn't just about the art anymore. It was about them. And for the first time, Emma felt like she had everything she needed to build the life she had always dreamed of. Not just as an artist, but as a woman who was truly loved. The weeks flew by, and Emma found herself more immersed in her work than ever before. Liam's support had transformed her art career, and with each new exhibition, her reputation grew. She was no longer just a struggling artist. She was someone people were starting to notice. But as the days passed, Emma also noticed something else. Her feelings for Liam were deepening in ways she hadn't expected. It was more than gratitude. It was something real, something that scared her. She had spent her life keeping people at arm's length, afraid of getting hurt. But with Liam, it felt different. He had been her rock, not just in terms of her art, but in her personal life. He was the one person who made her feel truly seen. And every time they were together, the bond between them seemed to grow stronger. But Emma couldn't shake the fear that had been with her for as long as she could remember, the fear of depending on someone else. She had always been the one to take care of herself, to build her own future. Letting someone else in felt risky, but with each passing day, the walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. It wasn't until one rainy afternoon that Emma realized just how deep her feelings for Liam had grown. She had spent the day working on a new piece, but when she took a break and checked her phone, she saw that Liam had sent her a message. "Hey, I was thinking about you. Let's meet tonight, just the two of us. I think we both deserve a little time away from everything." The message was simple, but Emma's heart raced as she read it. She had been feeling the same way, but the thought of spending time with Liam outside of their usual meetings made her nervous. What if things changed? What if this was the moment everything shifted? But as soon as she saw the message, she knew she wanted to see him. She couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. That evening, Emma met Liam at a small, cozy restaurant they both liked. The rain outside had softened, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Liam was already there, sitting at a table by the window, a warm smile on his face when she walked in. "Hey, you made it," he said, standing to greet her. His eyes were kind, but there was something else in them, a depth she couldn't ignore. "I'm glad we're doing this," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. She took her seat across from him, feeling both nervous and excited. The conversation started slowly, but soon it flowed effortlessly. They talked about everything, their dreams, their challenges, the little things that made them laugh. But as the night wore on, Emma began to notice how natural it felt to be with him. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people enjoying each other's company. As they finished dinner, Liam reached across the table and took her hand in his. The gesture was simple, but it sent a jolt of warmth through Emma's chest. "I'm really glad I met you, Emma," Liam said quietly, his voice soft but full of meaning. "You've changed my life in ways I can't even explain." Emma felt her heart swell. She had never imagined that meeting someone by chance could lead to this moment. She had always believed that success came from hard work, but now she realized that sometimes it also came from opening your heart. "You've changed my life too," she whispered, her eyes locked with his. The moment felt suspended. In time, as if the world had faded away, leaving just the two of them. In that moment, Emma realized that she didn't need to be afraid anymore. She didn't need to carry the weight of her dreams on her own. With Liam by her side, she could build the life she had always wanted, both in her art and in her heart. As they sat there, their hands still intertwined, Emma knew that whatever came next, she was ready. Ready to take the leap into something real. Something that had the potential to change everything. As the days went by, Emma found herself slipping into a routine she never thought possible. With Liam's support, her art was flourishing, and she was becoming the artist she had always dreamed of. The exhibitions kept coming, and each one brought new opportunities, new connections. But as her career soared, Emma couldn't ignore the growing feelings she had for Liam. It wasn't just about his help with her art. It was the way he made her feel. The way he saw her, truly saw her, for who she was and not just as someone striving to make it. But still, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. Could she truly trust that this was real? Was it just because he had helped her so much that she felt this way? Or was it something deeper? Emma had never been one to rely on anyone, and now, she wasn't sure where she stood. They had spent so much time together, laughing, sharing, growing. But was she falling for him just because he had helped her achieve her dreams? Or was it because of who he was as a person? One evening, as Emma worked late in her studio, the weight of her thoughts grew heavier. She put down her paintbrush and stared out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. She had so many things to be grateful for, yet she felt an emptiness she couldn't explain. The next day, Liam invited her to a quiet dinner. "I want to take you somewhere special," he had said over the phone, his voice warm and comforting. They met at a small, intimate restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. The atmosphere was soft and welcoming, a stark contrast to the bustling world outside. Liam had always known how to make her feel at ease, but tonight, there was a new sense of vulnerability in her. The conversation started light, as it always did, but soon, Emma felt a shift. She could sense that something was different in the air, something unspoken between them. As they ate, Emma found herself thinking about their relationship. She knew she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. She had to be honest with herself and with Liam. After dinner, as they walked out into the cool night air, Emma stopped in her tracks. She had to say it. "Liam, I need to be honest with you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready for what we're becoming. Everything's moving so fast, and I don't want to hurt you, but I'm scared." Liam turned to her, his expression soft but serious. "Emma, I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice steady. "I don't want you to feel pressured. I just want you to know that I'm here, no matter what." Emma's heart swelled at his words. He didn't push her, didn't demand anything from her. He just stood there, patient, understanding, offering her the space she needed. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of clarity. Maybe it wasn't about rushing things, about forcing herself into something she wasn't ready for. Maybe it was about trusting the process and taking things one step at a time. That night, as they parted ways, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew that she wasn't alone. She had Liam by her side, and that was enough for now. As she lay in bed that night, Emma's thoughts drifted back to her art, to the life she was building for herself. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew that she was on the right path. And with Liam, maybe, just maybe, she could finally believe in herself the way he believed in her. The next few weeks brought a new level of excitement and nervousness for Emma. With her art now on display in galleries around the city, she was becoming a name people recognized. But with the success came a sense of pressure she wasn't used to. The days blurred together as she worked on new pieces, tried to maintain her newfound reputation, and navigated the quiet, growing tension between her and Liam. She couldn't deny the way she felt when he was near her, but the doubts were still there, lingering in the back of her mind. Liam had given her everything, his support, his belief in her, his love, but Emma had never allowed herself to fully trust anyone. As much as she cared about him, she feared that relying on him would make her vulnerable in a way she wasn't ready for. It was during one of her late studio nights, when she was working on a new painting, that the weight of it all became too much. She stared at the canvas in front of her, her mind wandering as her brushstrokes slowed. She hadn't heard from Liam in a few days, and for the first time, the silence between them was deafening. The thought of confronting him filled her with dread. What if she wasn't ready? What if she wasn't the person he thought she was? And more than that, what if he wasn't the person she thought he was? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She blinked in surprise, her heart pounding as she glanced at the clock. It was late, too late for anyone to be visiting. She stood up quickly, wiping her hands on her apron as she made her way to the door. When she opened it, Liam stood there, looking more serious than she had ever seen him. He was holding a small box in his hand, his eyes searching hers. "Emma," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "we need to talk." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She opened the door wider, stepping aside to let him in. He walked in without hesitation, his gaze never leaving hers. I've been thinking, Liam continued, about everything. About us. And I think it's time for me to be honest with you. Emma felt a tight knot form in her stomach. She had been waiting for this moment, the moment when he would say something that would change everything. But she wasn't ready for what he said next. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with the distance between us, Liam said, his voice quiet but firm. I love you, Emma, and I want to be with you. I want to build something real with you. The words hung in the air between them, the weight of his confession sinking in. Emma's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't expected this, not now, not after everything. She had spent so long convincing herself that she could do everything on her own, that she didn't need anyone else. But here Liam was, offering her everything. And for the first time, Emma realized that she didn't want to keep pushing him away. She didn't want to keep pretending she didn't feel the same way. Liam, she whispered, her voice trembling, I don't know if I can do this. I've spent my whole life protecting myself, and now, I'm scared. He reached out, taking her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. I know you're scared, he said gently. But you don't have to be anymore. You don't have to face this alone. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Emma's heart swelled at his words. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of something more. Maybe she didn't need to do everything on her own. Maybe, with Liam by her side, she could finally take that leap. As they stood there, in the quiet of her studio, Emma realized that the time for fear was over. She didn't have to carry the weight of her dreams alone anymore. And for the first time, she felt ready to embrace the future, not just as an artist, but as someone who was loved. She squeezed his hand, her voice steady now as she spoke. I love you too, Liam. I've just been afraid to admit it. Liam smiled, a sense of relief washing over him. Then let's do this together, he said. And for the first time in a long while, Emma knew that everything was going to be okay. As the days passed, Emma found herself adjusting to the new rhythm of her life. She and Liam had talked openly, their feelings laid bare, and the air between them was filled with a sense of relief. Emma no longer felt like she was carrying the weight of her dreams alone. With Liam's unwavering support, her art was thriving, and her world felt more stable than it had in a long time. But even as things seemed to be falling into place, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else, something she needed to address. One evening, after a busy day, at the gallery, Emma sat on the couch in her apartment, her sketchbook open in front of her. She had been working on a new piece, but her mind kept wandering. She thought about everything she had accomplished and about how far she had come. But then her thoughts turned to Liam. He had been a constant source of strength, and she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude toward him. And yet, there was a part of her that wondered, was she really ready for the life they were building together? She had always been independent, always relied on herself. The idea of depending on someone else, of letting someone in completely, felt foreign to her. But every time she saw Liam, every time he held her hand or smiled at her, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let go of those fears. As she stared at the page in front of her, Emma's phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. Hey, I've been thinking. Let's take a weekend trip. Just the two of us. I think we both need a break from everything. Emma smiled at the message. A weekend getaway sounded perfect. She didn't have to think twice. She replied with a simple yes. Let's do it. The weekend arrived, and Emma found herself packing her bags for the trip. Liam had arranged for them to stay at a quiet cabin by the lake, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. It was exactly what they needed, some time alone to relax and reconnect. When they arrived, Emma immediately felt a sense of calm wash over her. The air was fresh, the surroundings peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she could truly let her guard down. They spent the next few days enjoying each other's company. They hiked through the woods, had long talks by the fire, and shared quiet moments by the lake. The connection between them grew deeper with every passing moment, and Emma found herself falling even more in love with Liam. On the last night of their trip, as they sat on the porch of the cabin, the stars above them twinkling brightly, Liam turned to her. Emma, he said softly, his voice full of warmth, I've been thinking about something. I want to make this official. I want to build a life with you. Not just in the art world, but in every way. Emma felt a rush of emotions. She had always been afraid of commitment, afraid of letting someone else into her world. But with Liam, everything felt different. She didn't need to be afraid anymore. She realized that this was the next step in their journey together, and for the first time, she was ready to take it. "I want that too," she said, her voice steady with certainty. "I want to build a life with you, Liam." Liam smiled, his eyes shining with love. "Then let's do it," he said, taking her hand in his. As they sat there, the sound of the night surrounding them, Emma knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where she wasn't alone anymore. A chapter where they could both pursue their dreams and their love side by side. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt truly at peace, knowing that with Liam, everything would be okay. As the months passed, Emma and Liam's relationship grew stronger, and their lives intertwined in ways that Emma had never imagined. She found herself relying on him, not just for his support in her career, but for his love and the stability he brought into her world. For the first time, Emma felt like she wasn't alone in her journey. The success of her art continued to grow, but it was no longer just about the exhibitions or the recognition. It was about her passion, her ability to create, and the people who believed in her. Liam was her biggest supporter, always encouraging her to push boundaries and explore new directions with her work. But even with everything that was going right, there were moments when doubt crept into Emma's mind. She had spent so many years building her life independently, and now that she had someone by her side, it felt both wonderful and overwhelming. Could she truly open herself up to him? Was she ready to fully embrace the love he was offering? These thoughts haunted her late at night when she was alone in her studio, working on her latest piece. As the weeks went by, she found herself spending more and more time with Liam, and less time focused on her art. He had become her world, and while she loved him deeply, she worried that she was losing a piece of herself in the process. One evening, after a quiet dinner together, Liam could sense the tension in the air. Emma had been quiet all evening, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. He didn't push her to talk, but when they walked outside, he took her hand in his and stopped her. "Emma," he said gently, "I can tell something's been on your mind. You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" Emma felt the familiar rush of emotion flood through her. She wanted to open up to him, to tell him everything she was feeling, but the words didn't come. She had been so focused on being strong and independent for so long that allowing herself to be vulnerable felt like stepping into unknown territory. "I'm just overwhelmed," Emma finally said, her voice soft. "I love you, Liam, but I'm scared. I don't want to lose myself in this. I don't want to forget who I am." Liam smiled softly, his thumb gently brushing her hand. "Emma, you don't have to worry about that," he said, his voice reassuring. "You're not losing yourself. You're growing. And I'm here to support you, not to hold you back." Emma's heart swelled at his words. She realized then that her fear wasn't about losing herself. It was about allowing someone else to share in her life. She had been afraid of letting go, of giving herself completely to someone. But Liam wasn't asking her to change. He was asking her to trust him, to trust them. And in that moment, Emma knew that she was ready to take the next step, not just in her art, but in her relationship with Liam. The next few days were filled with a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Emma continued to create, but now there was a lightness in her work, an openness she hadn't allowed herself before. She was no longer fighting the feeling of being supported. Instead, she embraced it. She embraced Liam. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Emma turned to Liam with a smile. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "For everything. For being patient with me, for helping me find my way." Liam smiled back, his eyes full of warmth. "You've always had your way, Emma," he said. "I'm just glad I get to be a part of it." In that moment, Emma knew that she had found something real, something worth fighting for. She wasn't alone anymore. And with Liam by her side, she knew she could face anything that came her way. The months continued to roll by, and Emma found herself in a place she never imagined she'd be. Her art career was thriving, and with it came new challenges, new opportunities, and new connections. She was invited to more prestigious galleries, and her work was featured in art shows across the city. But beyond the fame and success, there was one thing that remained constant in her life: Liam. Every day spent with him felt like an adventure, an exploration of both her art and herself. He had stood by her through every high and low, encouraging her to chase her dreams and to embrace the love they had found. It had been months since their heart-to-heart conversation about trust, and Emma felt a profound sense of peace knowing that she had finally opened her heart completely to him. But even as everything seemed to fall into place, Emma couldn't help but wonder if there was something more they should be doing. As they sat together on a lazy Sunday morning, sipping coffee in the quiet of her apartment, Emma turned to Liam. "Do you ever wonder what comes next for us?" she asked, her voice soft, but filled with curiosity. Liam looked at her, his gaze steady and calm. He had always been the one to help her find clarity, but this time, he seemed just as thoughtful as she was. "I do," he said. "I think about it a lot, but I don't want to rush anything. What we have is special, and it doesn't have to follow any timeline." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had spent so many years rushing toward the future, believing that success and happiness were things to be chased. But now, with Liam by her side, she realized that the journey wasn't just about where she was going. It was about who she was becoming along the way. The next few weeks were filled with a sense of contentment. Emma's art flourished, but so did her relationship with Liam. They traveled together to new cities, spent quiet evenings together in their shared space, and supported each other in ways that went beyond words. But then one evening, as they sat together in the living room, Emma received a call that would change everything. It was from the gallery that had first discovered her work, and they had an exciting opportunity for her. They wanted to feature her in a solo exhibit in one of the most prestigious art centers in the country. It was everything she had dreamed of, but as she listened to the details, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. This could be the moment that defined her career, but it also meant leaving the comfort of everything she had built with Liam. When she hung up the phone, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. She had spent so long building her career, but now, she wasn't sure if she was ready to take such a big leap on her own. Liam noticed her expression and immediately stepped toward her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "What's going on, Emma?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Emma let out a breath, trying to collect her thoughts. "They want me to do a solo show," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's everything I've worked for, but I'm scared. It means traveling, it means being away from you, and I don't know if I'm ready for that." Liam smiled, his eyes softening. "You've always been ready, Emma. This is what you've dreamed of. But I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, no matter what. You don't have to do this alone." Emma looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. She realized that this was the moment she had been waiting for, not just in her career, but in her life. With Liam by her side, she could take this step forward. She didn't have to fear the unknown anymore. She was ready. "You're right," she said, her voice firm with resolve. "I'm ready." As the days passed, Emma packed her bags and prepared for the biggest exhibition of her career. She felt a mixture of excitement and nerves, but above all, she felt empowered. With Liam's love and support, she knew that this was just the beginning. She didn't have to choose between her dreams and her love for him. They were both part of her journey, and together, they would make it through anything. The night before her opening, as they stood together in her studio, Liam kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "I always will be." Emma smiled up at him, knowing that no matter where life took them, they would always have each other. And that was all she needed to take the next step. The future was wide open, and with Liam by her side, she was ready to face it head-on. The night of Emma's solo exhibition finally arrived, and the gallery was alive with energy. People mingled, talking animatedly about the art that adorned the walls. Emma stood near the back, watching the guests, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the moment she had worked for, the culmination of everything she had dreamed about for years. She had come so far from that lonely, struggling artist in her small apartment. And yet, standing here now, surrounded by people who admired her work, she felt a sense of vulnerability she hadn't expected. Liam was by her side, as always, offering quiet encouragement and words of reassurance. He stood just a few steps away, watching her with pride in his eyes. He had supported her through every step of this journey, and now, as her art filled the walls of the gallery, he was here, helping her take this moment in. As the night progressed, Emma found herself talking to more and more people, gallery owners, art collectors, critics, all eager to learn more about her work. She smiled and responded politely, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Liam. She couldn't help but feel that everything she had achieved, every step she had taken, was because of him. She had never imagined that a simple chance meeting at a charity event would lead to this. Her art, her life, everything changing in ways she couldn't have predicted. When the evening began to wind down, Liam approached her with a glass of champagne in hand. "You did it, Emma," he said, his voice full of admiration. "This is just the beginning. I'm so proud of you." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Liam's expression softened, and he reached out, taking her hand in his. "I always knew you had it in you. You just needed to see it for yourself." The words felt like a promise, a reminder of everything they had shared together and everything that still lay ahead. As the evening came to a close, Emma found herself standing outside the gallery, the cool night air brushing against her skin. She looked at Liam, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Liam smiled, his eyes warm and reassuring. "You don't need to thank me," he said softly. "I'm just happy to be here with you." Emma leaned into him, feeling the weight of the night lift off her shoulders. It wasn't just about the art. It was about the love and support they shared. It was about trusting each other and building something real. And in that moment, Emma knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She wasn't just an artist. She was someone who had learned to open her heart, to embrace love, and to trust that the future held even greater possibilities than she had ever imagined. With Liam by her side, she knew that the journey was just beginning. Together, they had created something beautiful. And together, they would face whatever came next.